So this is my paragraph 2 looking at how contrast is developed in The Sick Rose. My introduction outlined that contrast was used as a way of getting together opposites that generate a social warning. So how am I going to start with paragraph 2? So, contrast is created as a childlike tone jars with adult imagery of the poem. So I'm starting off with a topic sentence that highlights I'm looking at tone. I don't say how, but I just say it's tone in contrast with imagery. So the next point is where I make my point. What on earth is all this about? The poet addresses Rose as an innocent, which contrasts effectively with the moral and political threats in the poem. So, basically, I'm saying, what is the contrast? The contrast is Rose is innocent, and there's very and young, childlike, and there's very adult kind of threats coming towards her, and that's a contrast. So now I'm setting up the quote. I'm telling you which bit of the poem I've got it from, telling you the plot of the poem. This can be seen when Blake breaks to Rose that she's in great danger. See, without that line, this can be seen, and you might always want to start your setup quote as this can be seen when, or an example of this is, just tell me the plot of the story of the poem. Now, in The Sick Rose, it's a very short poem, which is fine because we could, if you didn't tell me this, I could get along without it. But in The Almond Tree, that is such a long poem that you really need to tell me which bit of the poem you get from by outlining in one sentence the plot. So next, I'm going to give you the evidence of the quote. Oh, Rose, thou art sick, the invisible worm. So here I'm going to go on to my analysis. So what basically good analysis should outline for you. My hand's getting tired. So basically good analysis should outline where the contrast is in the quote. Obviously, I can see it's between Oh Rose and worm, but you've got to really drive that home. The worm could be the phallus of a lover if Rose is a woman, so I'm saying why that's adult. Or a reference to the disruption caused by the devil in the Garden of Eden as God's authority is challenged. The lover challenges God's authority by tempting Rose into an illicit relationship outside the confines of marriage. So I'm bringing it back together now. What is this contrast? What is the point of it? This is the bigger picture. The contrast of Blake's childlike tone and adult corruption is used effectively to stress the vulnerability of Rose and the consequential moral danger this positions her in. So here I've gone from just pointing out the contrast to saying what the contrast means and saying what Blake was trying to achieve for the contrast. He's trying to make Rose up to be in an incredibly vulnerable position, which, later on adds to why these social warnings are so important for a society that is ignorant of what is coming. So that's paragraph 2.